What do you think women want in men?
Exactly the opposite of what they're saying they want right now. Honestly, there seems to be a culture of women saying, you know, I want this absolutely perfect Prince Charming who dotes on me all the time and is super emotional and is constantly updating me on his feelings. And then they show their boyfriend and it's like this masculine provider, protector who is, you know, constantly there for you but handles problems. So I think that's what women actually want and what they gravitate towards, but what comes out of the mouth can be a little different.
Welcome to episode 154 of my podcast. I'm Mikhaila Peterson. In this episode, I spoke with Amala Ekpunobi. Amala is a social media personality and the host of PragerU's show, Unapologetic with Amala. Raised in a far-left activist household, Amala embodies a trend that many young people are participating in, moving from the political left to the right. Amala and I discussed her previous activism, which was really interesting, politics, how she changed her mind and why when she moved from the left to the right, what it's like working for PragerU, online negativity she experiences, and more. This episode is sponsored by Rabbit Air. As you guys may know, I've moved from the luscious green state of Tennessee to Miami to avoid allergies, mainly. I liked Nashville. Nashville is super cute, but I was allergic to it basically year round. I have really severe seasonal allergies and allergies to everything else, really. And I used to have a hard time getting quality deep sleep. It turns out it was due to allergic reactions at night. So in Tennessee, that was pollen, and in Toronto, it was dust or down. I have 3 Rabbit Air purifiers, seen right there. My old one, which is in my living room, has my lion logo on it, which I think is hilarious and my husband hates. But this new air purifier from Rabbit Air is pretty crispy looking. I think everyone should have air filters, at least in their bedrooms and kids' bedrooms. Not only do Rabbit Air's air purifiers work well, but they have a super clean, very attractive look. They're very quiet, as you can hear, and they look great in rooms. More than anything, though, the air purifier that I got from Rabbit Air changed the way I sleep. Their A3 model, for example, won the world's most prestigious Red Dot Design Award thanks to its stylish design and the advanced filtration technology that targets airborne allergens, particles, and odors effectively. Even if you have no issues sleeping, we still breathe in nearly 2,000 gallons of air a day. If you're breathing in air that isn't clean, that can lead to a host of problems, least of all fatigue. So please do yourself a favor and visit rabbitair.com today to see their models or call them 24/7 to speak to a Rabbit Air consultant. That's rabbitair.com for access to the best air purifiers you'll find anywhere. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Amala Ekpunobi, welcome to my podcast.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. I've been seeing you out and about on the internet, so I'm glad that we can finally talk.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I sort of just stumbled into the world of the internet making these videos, and now people like reach out to me and they're like, I see your face everywhere. So it's just been a really wild ride.
That's fun. Okay, before we get started, can you give a brief background about who you are and what it is you do?
Sure, yeah. My name is Amala Ekpunobi. I am 21 years old, and I currently work at PragerU as a personality, which basically means that I make social content. I do political commentary about things that are happening day in and day out. And I got here because I was raised in a really far left-leaning household and was what I like to call indoctrinated from a pretty young age and wanted to be an activist, and eventually through my experience working with the political left sort of woke up and realized, oh, well, maybe I don't quite align with these views. And when I started getting on the internet to talk about that of course shook the space a little bit.
Wow, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So
yeah.
how does your family feel about you working with PragerU?
So for the most part, my family is really supportive of it. It was a moment where when I started talking about what I was doing and making these videos online, there was a rocky road, particularly with my mom, because I was raised by a single mother and she works for the political left. So she was not really happy about the whole transition that I went through.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. So what did you said you actually did activism? Did you have activist days?
Yes. So From a really young age, I was super involved in politics, really on the social end of things, talking about racism, environmental racism, women's reproductive rights, and feminism, and all that fun stuff, because that's what my mom did for a living. She was fundraising for people who were organizing and working on different amendments and getting bills passed. So I was constantly going to work with her as a child, and I would volunteer, help them make signs whenever they were going to do a new protest. And when I graduated high school, I thought, well, higher education is not that important to me right now. I need to go and pursue activism because nothing's going to happen if I don't change the world myself. And I ended up getting a position at my mom's organization as a youth organizer, which essentially just had me traveling around to different middle schools and high schools where I grew up and finding other young people and making them into activists as well.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, there's something to that, to being told that you have the ability to change the world. Like that,
absolutely.
At least that doesn't seem super unhealthy. It's just unhealthy, I guess, if you end up pushing things you don't believe in, right?
Yeah, and I think it's something that I think is different where I've changed is I'm no longer in this pool of, I'm trying to transform the world and constantly change things and create a new society or whatever the case may be. I'm more so trying to look from the view of understanding the world and understanding my place in it and what the meaning or purpose of my life is, as opposed to just constantly pushing things on other people as I was doing before.
Okay, so what changed? And when did that change for you?
Man, so for me, it changed about 3 years ago. I was 17, turning 18 at the time, and I was working for this organization 9 to 5 every day. And a lot of my job was revolving around misery. I was sort of waking up every day and looking for the injustice in the world, as you can imagine. Yeah, looking for racism and sexism and misogyny, and looking for areas where people were oppressed and trying to educate other young people about that. And in a lot of ways, retrospectively, I realized that I was kind of stealing hope and optimism away from a lot of young people in my life. And I think that reflected in my attitude, whether or not I was conscious of it or not. And that mixed with going into work every day and recognizing intolerance among the people that I was working with really pushed me. So yeah, I'm biracial. I was raised by a white family, so I would go into work every day and hear about how whiteness is evil and white people have controlled the conversation for too long and we need to start pushing them out of our spaces and making them into allies. And then I would go home to my white family who had took care of me my entire life, and I couldn't see the racism that everybody was talking about, and that really broke down the walls of my ideology from that moment.
Okay. How did you end up working with PragerU? And when did that happen? How long have you been with them?
I've only been with them for a little over a year now. And it started because I made videos on TikTok. I left the organization that I was working for, and for about a year and a half did nothing but just research, because I had found all these issues where I was deciding to change my mind and open up a little bit more. And I thought, well, what else could I possibly be wrong about? Or what else could I have a different... Right. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, mine was okay. I'll give you a bit of background because mine was different. I was very ill. I had an autoimmune disorder, and I was like put into the medical system. That's how I put it anyway. When I was 7, and I was in the hospital all the time. And when I was 23, it was when I was 23, so a bit older than you. But I ended up putting myself into remission with a paleo diet at the beginning, and all my health symptoms went away. And I was on like 8 medications. I was unbelievably ill. And that happened, and I thought, I had no idea that was possible. I didn't know that was possible. I was told that wasn't possible. And then I had the same kind of experience where I started looking around being like, I so firmly believed this, and I was so wrong that what if I'm wrong about a whole bunch of other things and I'm conducting my life in a way like based on lies? And so my belief in everything disappeared for a while.
Yeah, I went through the same exact thing as you. And I'm wondering if you experienced this, where when you started to recognize that you might have been wrong or might have had a different perception, you wanted to hold on to what you believed to. And I wanted to hold on and wanted to believe everything that I had thought my whole life, where it was kind of hard to open up and go and look at new things. Did that happen to you at all?
I mean, yeah. I think I had a difficult time like the way I got to diet was through reading scientific papers, and that slowly led me to diet. And it hurt. It definitely hurt when I had that switch and it was like I was wrong. There was, like, I would say there was some physical pain there, letting go of some of those beliefs. So if that's what you mean, it wasn't easy. It wasn't just like a switch. It broke me for a number of years. Like, it wasn't a quick recovery. It was like, I was so kind of, I felt arrogant. That's how I felt. It was like, I was so sure about myself. And like, how could I have been that sure and so wrong? And I hope I never make that mistake again, type of thing.
Same. And it's like, it's part of growing up too. I was so confident as a young person. Like, I was going out and doing speeches and organizing students and like being the person to lead that. And now I look back at myself and go, oh my gosh, you had so much audacity for such a young person who truly didn't know anything at the time. And then when you realize you don't know anything, you're like, wow, I just dedicated all this time, all this energy to something that I thought was just absolutely true. And then it's not. And it's devastating in a way, but then you seek some fulfillment out of learning what is actually true, or at least trying to find what is actually true.
Well, then that's good. And you're obviously going about that the right way, because there are lots of people who kind of realize that they're wrong about something, and then rather than pursuing the truth, they just go, oh, well, never mind. I'm just going to double down on what I believe, even if it's not true, because it hurts to change what you believe, right?
100%. And when I had gone into the rabbit hole of this whole transition and of actually finding out where I laid on things, I entered the journey with the intent of doubling down on what I believed. And I had a particular instance where I was pulled over by a police officer, and through my younger years in life, I had obviously always followed the news and things that my mother and her organization had shown me. And it was stuff like Tamir Rice and Michael Brown and Eric Garner and Philando Castile. Like, I watched that video with my own eyes. So I had already had this preconceived notion that if I had ever had an encounter with a police officer, it was going to go poorly. And when the moment came to fruition and I saw the lights and this guy walks up to my car, I started freaking out. And I had never had such a visceral response. I mean, just like crying, shaking, remembering to like turn your camera on, put your hands on 10 and 2. And this white male cop walked up, which was my worst nightmare at the time. And he just recognized something and said, you know, I'm not here to hurt you at all. You were just driving a little too fast. It was just like a beautiful moment. And I've never seen that man again. He'll never know exactly what he did for me, but that moment crushed something in me. So I went to the internet and I was like, no, there's no way that there's good police in America. I need to look into this. I need to double down on what I believe.
Wow.
And I found the opposite. So that's what sparked it for me.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah. In retrospect, I had a lot of just like crazy, weird moments that made me question where I was and who I was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. So did PragerU find you on TikTok through the TikToks?
Yeah. So I started making videos on the internet just as a hobby, just saying like, hey, I'm a conservative. I believe this, this, and that. And this is my old self. And the videos just slowly started picking up traction. And I think I had a video that all of a sudden just got 10 million views on the platform.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild, and it blew up, and I was getting all this hate and all this support. And one of the people working here at PragerU reached out to me and was like, hey, I'd love to just get on a call with you to discuss your story. And I hopped on this call and told her my story. And she said, well, we're doing a casting call to find the next Will Witt. And yeah, we're very similar, as you can probably see. And she's like, we'd love to bring you out to LA to tell your story. So I flew out and did a video called Stories of Us, where I told it and went over everything. And then they offered me a job. And I thought, you know what? I'm young, whatever. I should take this opportunity. So I, within a span of like 3 weeks, moved out here. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So what's it like? I suppose they're there watching you, so you can't really tell me. But what's it like? Are you enjoying? Are you having a good time?
I am having a good time. And I imagine it's similar to what you're doing. Like, you have this massive platform that's just been thrown in your lap a little bit, which can be stressful and overwhelming, but you have so much freedom about what you talk about and what you say. And I get to just be really open about the things that I'm learning and going through. And that's the wonderful thing about it. I think the only downside is I often feel an immense amount of pressure to just stay on top of everything that's happening all the time, which I'm sure you feel too. And to constantly just have something to say about everything that's happening in the world. But other than that, there's so much freedom involved with this job.
That's nice. That's great. That's great. That's good to hear. That doesn't sound stifling either.
No.
What's an average day look like for you?
Average day, I sort of get up, start looking at what everybody's talking about in the news and looking at all the differing perspectives on it and just sort of getting a grasp on what people think and feel. And I will make like micro content for social media on the biggest trending stories. And those are the little reels and shorts that everybody sees. And then I start working on my daily show, which I do an hour every single day talking about any given topic. Yeah. And I'll write out the different stories for that, start bullet pointing my perspective and giving voice to people who oppose what I have to say. And then we go live at 3 o'clock and do that for everybody.
Wow. That's really fun. That's every
is.
day. That's every day. That's quite a bit of work.
Every day.
Yeah, so you must be pretty involved in what's going on. I'm not.
Really?
Not, honestly. No, I keep hopping on this podcast and they're like, remember there was the Don't Say Gay bill? I didn't even hear about it for a month.
Oh, so lucky you.
I've been spending like I don't know, Elon buying Twitter. I was on top of that.
Is that something?
That's been about it.
Are you just like, I'm actively trying to stay away from this because it's not something that's good for my life? Or is it just something that you don't particularly take interest in?
I've just been busy. Like I do, I have my podcast, but I don't spend very much time. Hopefully I'm going to spend more time on the podcast because I used to put episodes out twice a week. That was better. But I got so busy with work for my dad and we're building a new platform. And so I haven't been up to date. I think it's been that and then moving all over the place. Nashville,
I can only
Miami.
imagine how busy it must be, especially with all the family work. You guys are like building an empire and it's so needed. I can imagine you guys are stretched thin. Yeah.
It's very thin, but it's fun. I think when I settle down in Miami, then I'll put episodes twice a week and I'll be more on top of current
you're going to have
events,
so much fun.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, you're going to do so well in Miami too. Florida's the best and I miss it so much.
Did you move from Florida? Where in Florida were you?
Yeah, I was in Central Florida near Orlando, and about a little over a year ago, I moved out here to LA, which was just massive culture shock, a super change from like freedom states to California, which was just so different for me.
Yeah, yikes. Oh, well.
Yeah,
okay.
Yikes is the word that sums it up.
Yeah, no, every time I go to California, I'm like, nah. I'll just give it a few more years. Nah. I always wanted to move to LA. I wanted to move to LA since I was little from California. And then a couple years ago, I was like, maybe not so much.
Oh, me too. I had these wild expectations of what LA was actually going to be. And then I got here and it by no means was the reality.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go through. I've got a whole list of questions for you.
Okay, cool.
But, okay, let's start with this, just to finish up what we were talking about. Did your kind of, I wouldn't say conversion, but switch in beliefs, did you end up losing a lot of friends or were you able to kind of explain the transition to people?
It's interesting because I had a wide variety of friends at the time, and my conservative friends who were friends with me somehow during my crazy radical period when I was contesting everything they had to say all the time, they stuck around and just cheered me on and were just happy to see that I was evolving and getting more open to things. It was my progressive friends who dipped out, and they did so silently, which was the really interesting thing for me. Like, I had been talking to them on a daily basis, and on the side was just posting these social media videos and promoting that and talking about the journey that I was going through, and just slowly but surely they stopped messaging me. And then I was blocked, and then it was just absolutely no contact with no explanation, which I can only ascribe to them seeing those videos and not being happy with what I had to say, because it was sort of this unspoken reality that we were experiencing where they just wouldn't bring up politics with me anymore. And yeah, it was rough for a little bit there, but then I just recognized, those people are not true friends if they can't stick around when you have a differing viewpoint.
Yeah. Okay. So then on to my list of questions.
Okay.
You have a lot of thoughts on OnlyFans. So
I do.
what are some of the first things that come to mind about OnlyFans?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is, if you're a grown woman and that's something that you want to do, by all means, I do not want to infringe on people's right to go and do that. Where I took issue with that platform in particular was being on social media and seeing it pushed so hard for young women, saying that this is not only is this a career alternative, but this is something that's going to make you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, which is a lie for the most part. Of course, if you're one of their top creators, that's the money you're going to get. But I was just scrolling through social media, and of course, they curate these pages for you based on your demographics and your age and what they think you're going to like or at least be susceptible to. And it was all of these young women saying, if you need a sign to go be on OnlyFans and sell your pictures, here's my bank account, and I make $80,000 a month doing this. And I saw just all these young girls, I'm talking like 13, 14, 15, commenting, well, as soon as I turn 18, this is what I'm gonna do. I can't wait. Like, who needs to go to school? Who needs to pursue a career when you can just do this as your career? And that, I just think culturally is probably a no-no for our future. I would imagine it's not gonna look up.
Yeah. I think the issue I've had with that is people play it off as if it's fine, right? They're like, do this for a while, it's fine. Like, maybe things change, maybe you drop it later. But like, you do that kind of thing, you're not going to feel good about yourself, right? No. And I honestly don't think I believe that there are people. Maybe there's the very rare individual that does that and is like, yeah, I'm fine, it's fine. But I don't think that makes people feel good about themselves. And I think saying that it's fine it is a lie.
I completely agree with you. I think it's a veneer that they put on. I think money shields that a little bit too. And I was looking into it. It was like the average income that you make from OnlyFans as somebody just starting out is like $180 a month. Yeah. So you're getting all of these young women to go like, oh yeah, I'm going to make so much money. Here's my pictures. And you never get to take that back. And you have to think that even the women who are super successful have to be experiencing some form of like psychological trauma, walking around and not knowing who has seen you naked or who has just got to experience your body in a way that is so intimate. And I'm just with you on that one. I think it's a total veneer of people saying this is positive and I don't mind it at all.
Yeah. And then, like you said, they prey on really young people. So at like 17 or 18 or 19 or 20, 21 even, I think. Like, I'd say probably anything under 23, that idea of having money, especially when you don't have any. So like if you're in university or something, you're like, I don't have, I have money barely to cover groceries and that's about it. Then it's like, this is easy. Like, I'm already kind of doing it on Instagram, just to go a little bit further, do it on OnlyFans. But then, like I said, these advertising agencies that advertise OnlyFans, so basically OnlyFans, offer it as an alternative, and it's not something that it's going to make you feel good once you can think more properly, I would say, when you're a bit older.
It is legitimately just a massive, massive trick. And I can understand why young people fall for it. Like when I was in high school, I would always joke about, when I graduate, I'm just going to be a stripper and that's what's going to pay for my college. Exactly.
I don't know why that's a joke people have. I had that as well. So did my friends. It'd be so much easier stripping. Yeah.
Like, and you think that. You think that, and but it's not at all. It really isn't, and it's not going to pay off your house. It's not going to pay off your college. But I could see, like, if you're a young person growing up in this climate right now, and you're looking at, like, how expensive higher education is, if you are not particularly happy with the minimum wage, if you're looking at how devastatingly difficult it can be to buy a house, how you'd be like, oh, I'll just sell my body for a few years, and then we'll forget about that and move on. But you don't move on. That's the thing.
Yeah, and you don't forget about it.
No, and I just imagine, like, you do OnlyFans, and then, like, 15 years later, you're sending your kid to school, and the other kids find out that your mom has naked pictures on the internet. I can only imagine all the horrible ways that it could go wrong.
Yeah, there are a lot of them.
So many.
Okay. I have to be very careful about some of these questions.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah. Okay, let's cover, I haven't actually talked about this on my podcast yet. The Amber Heard, Johnny Depp trial. Did you stay up to date on it, and what do you think about the outcomes?
I didn't watch the trial in its entirety, but I did keep up with sort of the ins and outs, who was testifying, what was happening, and just the general pulse of the entire situation. And my view, I'm very happy with the verdict that they got on this of saying that she did defame him. And it's an interesting thing. I wonder if this sort of trial is just something that was a car crash that people couldn't look away from and that's why they're so interested, or if it's actually going to change the culture around some of these conversations. My hope is that this sort of annihilates the believe all women narrative that we've been subjecting ourselves to, because it's just inherently untrue. You can't look at a group of people and because of their gender say that they're meant to be believed. And yeah, I hope that that's what happens. I think the unfortunate side of this is now that you have a lot of actual female victims of domestic abuse who are not going to be believed in the wake of what she's done. So there's a lot of different sides to this.
Yeah, it was weird to see something like a trial like that online, although I think it was probably appropriate. I know there were people commenting saying this should have been kind of behind closed doors, but the fact that Johnny Depp's career was actually completely sabotaged, it was like, no, maybe people do deserve to kind of see this, given the fact he was like the star and then disappeared.
Yeah,
So
I had that same conversation. Like, is this okay? Is this a reflection of
weird,
a healthy society?
Yeah, basically.
But then I thought about it and I was like, well, she's the one who brought this whole story to the press. She made this a worldwide announcement, and it deserves to be reconciled as a worldwide announcement if that's what you came to the table with. So that's the thing that's justified it for me, but I still feel that same creepy feeling about just watching people display all the intimate ins and outs of their relationship.
It is. It's weird. I don't know why that was allowed. I might have to look into that. There must have been a reason that it was actually televised. Because that's. Do you know why it was actually televised?
And I tried looking into it too. Like, did they have to consent to it being televised? And if so, is that another incentive for all of this? And yeah, it's a sticky situation because it's just this mix of just celebrity and fame and salacious stories and all this stuff. And I've been watching Russell Brand a lot lately, and he's been commenting on it and saying, oh, he's fantastic. Like I've been obsessed with him for a while, but even more so now with his views and how he communicates these things. But his view has just been the same. Like, this is a really strange thing for us all to be going through, but also brings up discussions that need to be had. So is that the trade-off that we have here?
Yeah, fair enough. Did you get banned on TikTok?
I've been banned so many times on that platform.
Why?
So the main marker that I get on that platform is hate speech. So if you go and say that men are men and women are women, it's hate speech. If I go and say, well, I'm a black person who doesn't particularly agree with the idea of systemic racism, hate speech, taken down. And I get permanently banned. I think I've been permanently banned 3 or 4 times now. And then they always give me my account back.
Wow. Do you think that's the most left-wing platform out there right now?
Honestly, I think so. We could go through and look at everything, but TikTok is truly, I've never seen something more sensitive to saying something outside of the box or that is not widely accepted by that ideology. And I have just never seen more young people so confidently espousing what is really radical ideology, and millions of likes, hundreds of thousands of comments, and it's just sold to you. It's insane. And that's what's made me start making videos in the beginning. I just hopped on TikTok just to see what it was because everybody was talking about it, and then Trump did that whole CCP thing. So I was like, okay, let's look at this. And I went on my For You page for what they curated for me. And it was all this stuff about just like racism and sell your body and grooming and sexual empowerment and all this stuff. And I thought, this is insane. This is unbelievable.
Wow. Mine was strange at the beginning too. I haven't been on it very much, but I remember at the beginning I was like, whoa, they didn't get me right. If that's like the average consumer, that they didn't get me right at all.
No, but then I'm thinking, okay, well, they know that their platform is widely used by people who are like 13 to 18, and those people are impressionable and might not have direct, distinct opinions yet. And if you see just all these other young people saying the same thing, you're like, oh, well, literally everybody on TikTok says that this is true. So this is what I believe now. It's crazy.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. That's concerning. Okay. How much sex ed should schools have?
This is something that I struggled with just thinking about. I tried to remember when I started getting sex education in school, and I don't think it was until about 5th grade, and I don't remember how old you are in 5th grade. Same for you?
I think mine was 5th grade too, and I think you're about 10 or 11, I think.
Okay, 10 or 11. And I just remember learning that, you know, if you're going to have sex, you should use a condom and you should get STD checked and just the very basic, simple, this is how a baby is made, so watch out. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I think if you approach the subject with just, here's what is objectively true about making this decision in your life, and here are the things that could happen, that's totally fine. I think where we got into like the whole don't say gay bill and all of this stuff is going farther outside the span of neutrality and talking about things like gender and the different sexual experiences you can have. And, you know, I don't want to get too explicit.
Did you get that? Did you get that in school?
No, not at all. There was no discussion of you could possibly feel dysmorphic from whatever body you were born in. Around eating, like eating disorders and things like that, we would talk about that sort of dysmorphia, but nothing in relation to gender. We never got that. We never got like, these are the different sex acts that you could perform with somebody, which is screenshots that I'm seeing right now from a lot of like elementary school, middle school age kids.
Yikes.
So that's where I sort of draw the line. Just talk about what is objectively true. And I would even say you can talk about the fact that some people choose to do that with the same sex. Totally fine. And here are the things that you need to do if that's your choice. Totally fine. But we don't need to do all that other stuff. Let the parents handle it.
Yeah, let the parents handle it. How do you feel? So this is something I kind of a topic I shied away from for a while because Dad was all wrapped up with Bill C-16 and, you know, compelled speech. He was he's still against compelled speech. And it kind of got wrapped up in the trans debate, if that's a debate. And so I kind of avoided it. But then recently seeing, especially in college sports, seeing these people that are like biological males, especially the swimmer, this really pissed me off because it was like, you know, 6 foot, I don't know, 3, like giant man competing with like women. And it just boggles my mind and it feels regressive. Like women had a lot to fight for a long time to be taken seriously, to be able to work in the workplace, even to go to university in the first place. And then to have, the people winning in women's sports are biological men. But don't worry, it's fair. Yep. It's just too far. What's your opinion on how that's been going?
I mean, I completely agree with everything you just said. And I like to approach people who disagree with me with a high degree of empathy because I was there before in my life. But when you watch things like this happen and you see how devoid they are of logic and just actually having integrity when it comes to talking about these things, it makes me upset to see it. And that swimmer that you're talking about in particular, Leah Thomas, just went on Good Morning America to talk about I don't know what pronouns to use, their experience being a part of this swim team, and said, you know, I know a lot of people are upset about this, but I'm happy. And this idea that an individual's happiness is above fairness, is above infringing on other people's rights, is above infringing on like the careers that these young women have worked their entire lives for. Unbelievable to me that anybody could see it. And then, you know, if you're going to approach it in good faith and go, yeah, I recognize the biological advantage, but I still think it's okay, that's a different discussion. But there are people coming to the table and saying, well, there's no advantage there. The body's not different. It's the exact same. You know, cisgendered women are different too, and there's a lot of variation, so it doesn't matter. And when you start being disingenuous, that's when I'm like, okay, we need to knock this out. And I'm sure you can speak to this. You're accepting of people who are adults and are transgender and want to change their bodies. Is that something that you're cool with?
If they're adults.
Right.
If they're adults, I don't really care. Like, do what you want as long as it's not going to be kind of put on me.
Yeah.
If they're adults.
Yeah, and that's why we've sort of been forced to get into this discussion about it because we agree on that. And I think that's something that your dad agreed with when he was talking about the C-16 bill and all this stuff too. And suddenly they're like, okay, not only is it okay, but we can step on female athletes and we can compel your speech and we can force you to accept this reality too. And that's where we go, whoa, wait a minute. I said it was cool. Just don't come and step on my right and my lifestyle, please.
Yeah. Pretty crazy situation.
This episode is sponsored by NordVPN. If you've followed the show for a while, then you probably already know how important it is for me to make sure I can access American Netflix anywhere in the world. There isn't any country that's stopping me from watching my shows. They can try, but they won't succeed. That's the main benefit of NordVPN, I think. But they also use state-of-the-art encryption that keeps you safe from third parties who want to watch your online activity. They also protect you from hackers, malware, and other malicious threats online. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. Using NordVPN's encrypted connection is an easy and effective way to reclaim your online privacy and know that your data is safe, plus watch online content anywhere. With over 5,300 servers around the world, NordVPN never buffers or crashes. Their huge number of servers translates to connection speeds of up to 6,730 megabits per second. Grab your NordVPN deal today over at nordvpn.com/TMPP or use promo code TMPP for 61% off their premium plan and their free anti-malware feature. All with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
What do you think about Biden's idea to pardon student debt?
I don't think it's going to happen, at least not in the scale that it was promised to a lot of young people. A lot of times when I see this, I just think it's a political ploy to get young people out to vote and to support you. And it seems to work every time when you're a young person facing the idea of higher education and you see how expensive it is. Yeah, and you hear this side go, I'm going to totally take care of that for you. That's the side I'm going to go to, because that's the one that affects my life. So I think it's a ploy in some ways. He might forgive maybe like $10,000 debt from people. How much is that actually going to do? But just from a fairness standpoint, you chose to take out that loan. You chose to pursue higher education. Nobody forced you to put yourself in this insurmountable debt. So why is it now the government's obligation to take you out of that? Are we going to do the same for people who regret taking out a mortgage on their house or regret taking out that car loan? It's essentially the same thing. Money being given to you in order to pursue something. And there's certainly an issue with how expensive higher education is, and I think that's a discussion we should all be having. But it's not the discussion of forgiving debt that people willingly put themselves in.
What did you do for university?
So when I left high school, I started working for that organization. I did that for a year and decided not to pursue college. And then after that, I left and I was like, no more politics. I'm not talking about this anymore. What's something that I can do that's pretty cut and dry? And I was like, medicine. I won't get into arguments about politics or religion or anything in medicine. But
nice.
You'll find that's
go into the sciences. Yeah.
Exactly. So I actually started working at an immunology clinic, which is why, when you said you had an immune disorder, I was like, oh yeah, I totally get the turmoil that you probably went through. So I started working there and working with patients, and at night I was going to school for nursing, eventually with the intent of becoming a midwife, but that obviously didn't pan out. So here I am.
Yeah, no, fair. I went back to school for sciences too. I took 2 years of sciences. Which was really interesting. Like it's hard, and it's similar to the nursing degree with just the first couple of years of that. It's intense. It's much different than an arts degree.
It's
here's a textbook to memorize. Like, okay.
Yeah, here's every part in the body, and you need to know exactly how it works and what medications to give and all that. But it's so interesting and so fun. And once you have the information, it's so useful. I would come to find that medicine is actually just as contentious as politics, which I'm sure you learned too in your own health journey. But it was still a great couple years there. Yeah,
and then how come you decided to not pursue that? Did you just see opportunity elsewhere?
Yeah, I got that call from PragerU, and they said, let's move you out here to LA and you can pursue this. And I thought, I think it's an important thing to be doing right now. I'll take that up. And luckily I got out right in the nick of time, because it was just before they started saying, if you're going to be a nurse, you have to be vaccinated and you have to do this, this, and that. So I got out just before like the authoritarian measures started taking place.
Yeah, yikes. Okay, well, I think that was a good decision. I mean,
absolutely. No regrets.
Yeah, no, not at all. For that reason, for sure. But also if the purpose of pursuing an education is to get a job and then you already have an opportunity for a job. I think people in college make that mistake sometimes if they're presented with an opportunity and they're like, well, I have to finish my degree. It's like, yeah, but is the opportunity what you're working for anyway? Or what you're working towards? It's like maybe it's more important than the degree.
Exactly. And I go back and think about just my time in K through 12 school and how we were constantly inundated with this idea that you have to go to college. Like when I told guidance counselors at my school, like, I don't think I'm going to go to college, they were so upset. They were blowing through the roof. Like they could not believe that a young person would not want to go to college. And now I get on the other side of it and I'm just like, wow, this feels like this just massive Ponzi scheme to get all of our money when we could be pursuing avenues elsewhere. All the people that I meet in this line of work and I talk to them just like, what college did you go to? Oh, well, I went here for a couple years and then I dropped out and now I'm doing this, or I didn't go to college at all. And so many successful people didn't do that and didn't fall for that. Of course, if your career needs higher education, by all means pursue it. And I think it's a wonderful thing, but it is a big trick in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think it works for some people who need a more structured way to learn. Like maybe in order to learn, you have to take classes and you have to be told what to read and you have to be forced to write essays. But if you can go online and take courses, or if you read by yourself, then it's kind of a giant waste of money, like you said, especially in America. Like at least Canada is more reasonable, but America, like it's a crazy amount of money. And then what do you get exactly?
Yeah, you get debt and a cookie cutter education that everybody else around you got. And I would love to see education change to be more personalized to students. And I hope that's something that we're on the cusp of, but it doesn't really look like it.
I think the system is going to have to break completely.
Yeah, Will agree. Will's like, abolish the public schools. I'm not quite on that train yet. I think we just need a push from parents to just have personalized education. When I was at the end of my schooling career, that's when they started talking about, if you have certain interests, we'll sort of cater your education to those interests. I don't know if they're continuing to do that, but I wish they would. I know a lot of schools in Europe, when you're like 16 and you're like, I'm interested in being a mechanic, they're like, okay, perfect. We'll go and teach you how to do that. Or I'm interested in English. Okay, we'll put you down that path. I wish we did that more here, and I don't know why we don't do that.
Yeah, I think you'd have to go to a pretty expensive private school to get that kind of education. And even then they push you towards college. It might just be outdated. Like maybe 15, 20 years ago, that was the way to go. Right. Maybe the education you got in college was the way to go. Maybe it wasn't as expensive for a number of reasons. And maybe the public school system or private school system just hasn't caught up. And they're like, oh, wait, college isn't what you think it is anymore.
Exactly. And our world is opening up to so many different new jobs and careers that have never existed before. Yeah, and we haven't accommodated for that yet, I don't think.
No, not at all. Not at all. Even using social media as a type of job. It's like, even 4 years ago, 5 years ago, even now, but especially 5 years ago, it was like, that's a joke. Like, it's kind of looked down on. It was like, no, this is serious. There's an opportunity here.
Yeah, and now with TikTok, it's like 15-year-olds are providing for their entire family just by making videos every single day. So it's insane.
How do you make money off of TikTok? Do they get ad sponsorships?
So there's multiple things that you can do. So you can become a creator, and once you reach a certain amount of followers and views on your videos, you get invited to a TikTok creator fund, which is a very poorly run monetization tool that they have, where they have one big pool of money and all the creators are added in, and as your videos get more views, you get more money. But that pool of money never changes. It's finite for some reason. And then they have the creator marketplace, where you can link up with brands and do ads through your TikTok videos and get clothing lines and all that fun stuff. So there's so many ways to make money off of TikTok.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to learn that platform more.
It's really, really useful. I think it's, at your own risk. I think it's one of the fastest growing social media platforms that is really given an opportunity for anybody, and I mean anybody, to make a name for themselves. Whether that's a good thing, super questionable, but super, super useful if you're already doing it and it's something that you're good at, which obviously you are.
Thank you. I'm just taking podcast clips. I'm like, good luck, TikTok. Here's some podcast clips. Not sure exactly if that's the type of content you're into, but this is what you get.
I get your stuff on my For You page, so it must be working.
Good. Infiltrating. That's what I want. Okay, this is fun. What do you think women want in men?
Exactly the opposite of what they're saying they want right now. Honestly, there seems to be a culture of women saying, you know, I want this absolutely perfect Prince Charming who dotes on me all the time and is super emotional and is constantly updating me on his feelings. And then they show their boyfriend and it's like this masculine provider, protector who is, you know, constantly there for you but handles problems. So I think that's what women actually want and what they gravitate towards, but what comes out of the mouth can be a little different. I think men, I don't know if you've noticed, but they're a lot more feminine these days, at least here in LA where I live, a lot of very feminine men. But I think women typically look for an amount of masculinity that usurps their own. So whatever that might be for you. Yeah.
I like that explanation. I had a conversation the other day, and I don't know whether or not this is true, but apparently this is getting into the conspiracy part of my show, which I extremely enjoy, and who knows what out there is right and what isn't.
Tinfoil hat on. Love it.
Yeah. I don't even know how tinfoil this is, but apparently there's a lot of Chinese production companies that are backing Hollywood movies that are portraying more feminine men. And so they'll push a whole bunch of money into these movies saying, oh no, this is the ideal man. Just like feminine man is the ideal man, but they won't show that content in China. So we're just brainwashing all the young people being like, oh no, well, like when I grow up, I want to marry a pansy. And it's like,
right.
No, you don't, right? But isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. And I've seen the same thing. Like they'll fund like feminist campaigns here in the United States that talk about toxic masculinity and feminizing men. And they funded CRT videos that get shown in American schools, but they would never show that in China, which is
crazy.
Unbelievable. It seems to me like they are just slowly chipping away at us through our own divides that we've created. And they're just fueling them and sparking them even more. And with the man one, you have to think that's like long-term chess move.
Yeah.
Insane. Like we have now a culture of feminine men who are linking up with masculine women because women are getting more masculine in our nation. And then they're going to create even more feminized boys and more and more and more. And long-term, big win for China there.
Okay. Yeah. I feel that. Yeah,
okay.
What a chess move, though. Like decades ago, they're like sitting around some evil table being like, you know what would be funny? Turning all the men into women in America. That would be funny. Let's just do this slowly. Yeah.
It'd be funny while we become like this global sensation and push for this globalist economy and everything at the same time. It's really just like long-term, decades-long chess moves of that old adage of, you know, I don't need to destroy my enemy. I'll have them do it themselves. And I think that's honestly where we're headed.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Well, it's good that places like PragerU exist just to give kind of a voice. And it's nice that you've been brought on and they're trying to work with younger people too, because a lot of the conservative movement is kind of like, well, what it's stereotyped as, which is like old middle-aged white men talking about boring things, which isn't the case at all. So
no, that was my view of conservatives. It's just like they're old, crotchety men, capitalists who don't care about anything that you feel and never want to hear you speak and all this stuff. And I think I ended up finding Thomas Sowell, and he broke through that idea for me. Oh yeah,
he's cool.
He's just like a strong hitter. I feel like anybody who comes across his videos has their mind changed, and he's in his 90s now, which is just crazy.
That's
and I wonder,
nuts.
I know, like who's going to take on that massive legacy and push forth that message. But yeah, I had the same view. So now I'm like totally trying to break through that stereotype. I'm like, conservatives are fun. They care about you. They're empathetic to the way that you feel, even though they tell you that you're wrong. And just break the perception. Break the perception.
I like that. They're compassionate to the way that you feel, even though they'll tell you that you're wrong. I like that.
Yeah. That's where I'm at, because I stepped into this and I saw a lot of conservatives, I'm sure you see this too, who are like, I'm a lion, you're a sheep, you're so wrong, you got brainwashed, that would never happen to me, you're so stupid. And I thought, if I was a leftist, which I was, I would have watched that video for like 2 seconds and turned it off. How can I approach this in a way that keeps them? And when I get protested or people leave hate comments on my stuff, I go, hey, I used to be just like you. 4 years ago, I would have been leaving this same exact comment, and I totally understand why you feel the way that you feel, why you support the policies that you support. Can I give you a different perspective that might change your mind? And that has seemed to break down some of the barriers of people who at the outset would have never talked to me in a million years.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
So have you experienced a lot of negativity online, and does it bother you?
It does not bother me, but I experience so much of it. When I first started doing this, I thought, I'd get a big wave of hate and then it would slowly die out, but it's just a constant, ever-flowing pool of hate of just, you're a race traitor, you're a coon, you're an Uncle Tom, I can't believe you hate yourself, you must have been raised by a white woman, not even knowing that my mom is just like a super leftist. It doesn't bother me at all because it's exactly who I was as a person, so I totally understand the space that people are coming from in saying those things. I did a recent, I'm sure you've like stepped into controversy at some point and just been like, wow, this is a huge flow of hate that I didn't anticipate. I called out this TikToker, not really called out. I did a really respectful podcast about transgender ideology and talking about people on TikTok who are getting famous for being trans to the tune of just millions and millions of followers, and talking about whether or not it was the sign of a healthy society, even respected the person's pronouns during the podcast. And death threat after death threat after death threat. People were trying to dox me and find my email and all this stuff, and it was unbelievable. But I just can't imagine being a young person who's not ready to take that on, and how scared people are to come out about what they think.
How would you define political correctness?
I even struggle with the phrase itself because it implies that something is correct about what you're doing. Political correctness for me is just, I think, one side of the aisle right now dictating what language is acceptable for use and what language isn't, and people choosing to subscribe to that and calling themselves politically correct. I think the phrase inherently has this air of just virtue signal. I am politically correct. I get to pat myself on the back for this, but really it's just handcuffing the dialogue that we're allowed to have. And when you handcuff dialogue like that, you are cutting off an avenue to finding out what is true and what is right. So political correctness is probably one of the worst things that's happened to political discussions.
Do you have advice for people who are stuck in an echo chamber that they don't want to be part of?
If you don't want to be part of it, listen to that voice, and I imagine something that keeps you in the echo chamber is a fear of stepping outside of it and a fear of how the people who have surrounded you for so long will react to you stepping outside of it. But when you do so, you will find so much support just for simply questioning where you are. And I think one of the most fulfilling and relieving things I've ever come to think in my life is that I know absolutely nothing. And what I'm talking about and telling people about on a daily in my projects is just what I feel right now and what I think right now. And having that be constantly subject to change is going to take your life in so many different directions that you never would have even thought about before when you were in the echo chamber. It's honestly the most freeing experience you can possibly put yourself through, even though it's scary. So I would say step over the fear for a little bit and pursue it and see what happens.
I love it. That was great. That was great. So what are your goals for your show? Where do you see it happening? What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to create something that, even though it's under this PragerU umbrella, which I think people hear the word PragerU and they've automatically come up with what they think is going to be said, that I want to give voice to everybody who comes to the table about these issues. I constantly want to be butting heads with people who disagree with me. And if I'm wrong about something, come there and tell me that I'm wrong, because I would love to be proved wrong. I would love to find more truth. I would love to find a perspective that I didn't have. So I hope to make this show something that is not just, tap dancing for the side that tends to agree with you the most, but is something where people can hop in and have discussions in the chat about how they feel and go back and forth with this intent of finding out what is right and what is the best way to live. That is really my goal. And I always say, you know, if all of these social issues that I talk about get solved tomorrow, I'll take off my hat and put it away. The mic goes off and I'm done. I'm going to go back to leading my normal life. But as long as they persist, I feel like people like you and me have something to bring to the conversation, and it's always a good time, and it's very fulfilling.
You're a lovely individual.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
No, this has been fun. If people aren't following you online, where can they go to find you?
You can type in my killer name, Amala Ekpunobi. I know it's a tough one to type out, but on any platform, you'll find me under that name. You can also follow and support PragerU, because they're the ones who support me and allow me to get my message out there and talk about the things that I talk about with such freedom. So that's where you can find me, anywhere and everywhere.
Okay, we're going to link those below so people can press on it. I get it. I get having a difficult to spell name. You win with a difficult to spell name, but
I don't know.
Mikhaila, I get the weirdest. You must get it. I get the weirdest, like it's just like someone just put their fingers on the keyboard. It's like that's not it, but okay.
Yeah, no, yours might be, just with your iteration of Mikhaila, it might be just as rough as mine. Honestly, I was thinking about how to spell your name this morning, and I was like, I don't know exactly how to spell her name.
It's okay. That's pretty funny. Okay, Amala, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll link all your socials below. This was fun.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been great.